Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. It's actually webinar number 147 already. And if you're used to being present at our webinars lately, you probably noticed that there's a new face present today. I'm so excited to greet Hallie within the Discus team. Hallie is responsible for everything that has to do with marketing, with communication, and with ensuring that learners and clients are really well served. So welcome aboard, Hallie, and it's nice to be here. Don't hesitate to welcome Hallie in the chat and help me greet Hallie among the team today. So yeah, today we're talking about change management, emotional intelligence, and those are two inseparable um, um, context. So managing change is so much more than managing projects, timelines, activities. Change management is above all managing people, managing their moods, managing their reactions, their buy-in, their resistance, and so on and so on. So as we know from our own experience, some people will embrace change wholeheartedly, while others will resist it. And it's not that we're actually made that way, but it often has to do with the type of change that we're actually initiating in our workplace. So that's exactly why our ability to lead change and our emotional intelligence skills are really hand in hand, they're inseparable. So why this webinar? Well, we're here today because we know that change isn't just about timelines and action plans, it's about creating real impact. And that's exactly what we're aiming for together. So number one, why this webinar? To maximize the impact of the change. Poorly managed change drains time, energy, credibility. Our goal is not just to get through the change, but it's to make it meaningful and worth the effort. If people are going to actually spend some time and energy, we might as well make it worth it. Why this webinar is it's also to help us mobilize people, not just do a plan. So change doesn't live on paper. It lives in people, in real human beings. And what we see time after time again is that people follow leaders who feel human and connected, not just competent, but people tend to follow people who are real human beings and not robots. So we're also here today to reduce resistance and discomfort in regards to change. Resistance is a natural reaction to uncertainty. When you're not certain about something, it's normal to resist and to not be fully in or engaged. But when change is well supported, paced properly, with clear direction, it calms fears and it helps to reduce anxiety. Why this webinar? It's to help us lead with rigor and with emotional clarity. Finally, we'll talk about balance. Yes, we need structure, we need rigor, but we also need emotional clarity because change isn't only a rational process, it's a human experience. And managing that experience with care is what makes the difference. So this is why we're here today. So rapidly, this is today's program. So we'll just take a few minutes to look at two quick definitions. And then the heart of this webinar lies in three modules. The first one is winning conditions. This is what I like to call a leader's homework. So things to do before even trying to seek buy-in. So we'll go through five basic homeworks to do before. The heart of this webinar, I think, lies in the impact of emotional intelligence on employees. So in other words, what are 8 behaviors or strategies that I need to apply or to practice when leading change? The third and last module will be about communication. communicate not just to inform about a change, but communicate to actually engage people in a change. So we'll look at 5 strategies, and we'll end with one trap that we might fall into at times to times, the risk of falling into that trap, and replace the trap with a tip and its impact, and just a few words on our next trainings. So if you're not new to our webinars, you've seen this diagram before. So when we talk about change, there are different leadership expectations. And I'm reminded of a mentor that I had, and he once told me when I started my first principalship, like 25 years ago, he told me, Micheline, when you actually will leave your school in 4 or 5 years from now, you got to make sure that you've left it in a better place than when you arrived. And it's not to say that when I arrived, it was a mess. It's just that this is what leaders do. They come into an organization, a department, a school, or whatever, a business, and they take it from point A to B, or B to C, or M to N, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's not to say that it's not well managed, but there's always improvements to do. So if you're going to improve on something, it means that you're going to change things, a culture, processes, policies, the way you do things, et cetera, et cetera. So let's look at this diagram from a leaders or board's expectations. So if you're employed in a department organization, your supervisor probably expects you to contribute to the implementation of the mission. Make sure you do what you're supposed to do and that you deliver the mission in the best way that is possible, that you serve your clients, your clientele in the best way possible. So implementation of the mission, realization of the vision. Make sure that what you do is to go closer and closer and closer to where we're supposed to be at in a few years. So the vision, practice the values, mobilize and engage staff. And this is where change management strategies come into place, and so on. So leaders above us, supervisors, they expect us to initiate change, implement change, create buy-in. From an employee's perspective or point of view, they do expect things from us. I won't go through the list, but they expect us to establish the direction and key priorities. They expect us to tell them exactly where we're going, why we're going there, and what is mostly important right now. They expect us also to make the best decisions for the organization. So to make the best decisions for the organization implies change, not status quo, but taking our organization from point B to C and so on. So good decision, and to regularly communicate important matters. So as we will find out or remind ourselves this afternoon, is that all the strategies that will be presented to buy in either homework, communication, intelligence, emotional intelligence, they're almost all related to communication. And that is what employees expect from us. So again, a second diagram that you've probably seen if this is not your first webinar, but as I was telling you, what my mentor had always told me is leave your school or your organization in a better place than when you arrived. So make it as dynamic as possible. So the changes that we need to implement are usually not limited to just one area. And the one I had in mind when I did take my first principalship touched on several key dimensions of our culture and our daily practices. First, we had to learn to work better together, not just within our own teams, but across the whole board, across the whole school. Then came a mindset shift, moving from a culture of my students to our students. So change has to do with the way we work, but it sometimes has to do with the culture that's within the workplace. and so on and so on. So changes are in either our culture of collaboration, the way we work together. It might have to do with our performance, how we're doing in regards to clientele satisfaction. Are we meeting their needs? Are they satisfied? Are the products or services that we're delivering excellent, and so on and so on. So it might have to do with our performance and knowing what we have to improve on. Or in the blue area, it might have to do with the way we do things. Then gestion de nos affaires, the culture of accountability, our processes respectful of laws, policies, regulations, and so on. Are we managing our department and our organization in a legal and well managed structure? So I won't go through all of the diagram, but basically changes that we do has to fall into one of these 4 areas. A few definitions to just quickly start this webinar. What is change management? Change management is the work of a manager that he must or she must do to improve the implementation of the organization's mission or the achievement of its vision. It has to do with the diagram we just saw. Essentially, it's the ability to create a clear and engaging vision for change. So what's the vision? Ensure alignment and resources and stakeholder buy-in, and be present and actively involved throughout its execution. So ultimately, a leader's capacity to drive change initiatives with both emotional and business intelligence to ensure its success. So change management isn't just a project or a checklist. It's a core leadership responsibility. It's about moving the mission forward. It's about bringing the vision to life. It's through clear direction and engaged execution. It means creating a vision that people can connect to, aligning resources, making sure we have what we need to move forward, securing buy-in, showing up, not just at the start, but all along the way. So ultimately, change management is about leading change with both our head, logic, and our heart, keeping the human in mind. So combining our business sense with emotional intelligence to make sure that change sticks. So what is emotional intelligence when we talk about change management? Well, it's the ability of a leader to recognize, understand, and manage emotions, their own emotions as well as others' emotion, to guide people through uncertainty, to guide them through resistance, to guide them through emotional impacts of change. So essentially, it's knowing that it's not the change itself that exhausts people, but it's how it's experienced and supported. And that reminds me of when we do a training on difficult conversations. I often ask participants, what do you expect when someone has to tell you something that's difficult? What do you expect when you receive difficult feedback? And the most popular answer is, Micheline, I don't care what the feedback is. I can take about just anything. What matters is how it's delivered. Well, it's the same with change. Change is almost secondary to the way we actually communicate the change and to the way we have it experienced and supported in our organization. So ultimately, it's about ensuring that change is seen not as a threat, but as an evolution in which everyone finds their place. So quickly, winning conditions. This is the 5 homeworks I was telling you about. This is the 5 must-dos before seeking employee buy-in. Homework number 1. We have to clearly document the decision, the vision, or the direction. I often hear leaders say, oh, but it's so clear in my head. I know where I'm going. I know where we want to be, where I want the organization to be in a year or 2 years from now, or the decision that I want that I'm implementing, it's so clear in my head. But it's got to go from your head to a paper, or at least an electronic paper. So it's the ability to clearly write down the path, the intentions, or the non-negotiables of the change. So essentially what this means is, if it's not clear on paper, it probably won't be clear in action. So ultimately, a shared document enables alignment, it answers questions, and it prevents misinterpretations. And this is a step that is often underestimated, but it's absolutely essential. If the path forward isn't clear in writing, it won't be any clearer during its implementation or during actions. And documenting, it doesn't mean that you have to write a novel. It's not a many-page document. It means being able to just pause and summarize what we're aiming for, what's non-negotiable, and what is still open for discussion. And that document, well, it becomes your reference point. And it'll help you speak with one voice, be aligned, be consistently on the same key message. And most importantly, when your message doesn't change, it helps everyone to create a clear understanding of the decision, the vision, or the direction, or what the change is all about. So here's a quick example. On a one-pager, explain first to yourself before explaining to others what is changing. And you might add to this what is not changing. So what is not changing? Why is it changing? Why is it important? What happens if we do? What happens if we don't? What is still open to discussion? But be clear about what is already decided. And what's the long-term vision behind this shift? So having that clear on a document, it'll help you moving forward when talking about it and presenting it. And that clarity will enable buy-in. Homework number 2, it's the why behind the what. Clarify the why and link it, if possible, to people's reality. So that's the ability to clearly explain the issues or the opportunities that makes the change necessary. Essentially, people need to feel that this is relevant to them, to their department, to their job, to their organization, but they need to feel that it's just not upper management going on a whim and trying something just for the fun of it. And I know that you guys are not doing this, but when employees feel its relevance, they're probably more prepared to buy in. So ultimately, a compelling why fosters buy-in and reduces passive resistance. And that's a fundamental reflex that we need to develop. Before asking for buy-in, we need to clearly explain why the change is needed. Needed as in must do versus would be nice to do. So the change should be a must, not a nice to. And that's not just a formality, it's a lever for engagement. If people feel the change addresses something real, you're already moving closer to buy-in. If they see it as something that's just decided from above, without clear relevance to their day-to-day or to your mission, well, you risk creating mistrust or passive resistance. So yes, we need to name the issues. What are we trying to fix? What is the problem, and how is the change or the vision or the decision will make it better? And this needs to be expressed in language that connects with both their logic, but with their lived experience. So that famous why, it's got to be meaningful. It cannot just be a slogan. It's got to connect with people on the ground. So what's the real why? So here's a quick example. trying to explain why our services for kids with learning disabilities has to change. So we're changing schedules, we're changing roles, we're changing a lot of things in our school. And here's the why. Too many students enter school with significant challenges. They come in kindergarten, grade 1, they have anxiety, they have concentration issues and emotional issues and so on and so on. And actually, when they leave in grade 6, they have the same issues as when they came in. So that's a real why. We have data on this, but sharing that this creates a discomfort in my professional experience is also another why. So this change, well, it aims to intervene earlier, more strategically, and with real impact on student learning journey and on professionals' responsibilities. We all came into education wanting to make a difference. This is a real good example for doing it. So homework number 2, make sure that the why is relevant and not just a slogan. Homework number 3, clean up the inconsistencies. That's the ability to spot and to correct messages, behaviors, processes that undermine credibility. Essentially, you cannot promote something new without modeling it. Ultimately, consistency builds trust, and inconsistency breeds cynicism. This one is non-negotiable. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if your actions contradict your message, credibility will disappear. You simply can't promote a new direction without modeling it. People will notice everything and anything, and it's in the daily details that change will either sticks or it won't. So consistency builds trust. Inconsistency breeds cynicism and fuels silent resistance as well. So here's a quick example. If you're going to adopt a new remote work policy, so let's say 2 days in the office and 3 days at home, but in-person meetings are held like 3, 4, even 5 times a week, well, that's inconsistency. So you must adjust either the policy or your practices. So this is what we mean by cleaning up inconsistencies. Homework number 4, ensure capacity to follow through. So make sure that you have the internal capacity to actually move through the change. It's the ability to assess whether time, energy, skills are available to support the change. Because essentially, change cannot rely on an already overwhelmed team. Ultimately, people do engage when they feel supported, not when they're overloaded. So before asking people to commit to a change, we need to ask, do they or do we as an organization, do we actually have what it takes, what we need to support or to succeed the change? So do we have the time, the energy, the skills? That's where it starts. Do we have what we need? It's just like going on a trip. If your car is not in good condition, if you don't actually have the time or the money or any other resources, your trip will probably be a failure, or you will not enjoy it as much. So it's about the same with change. You can't build lasting change on top of overload or on dysfunctions. Even the most motivated teams will burn out if you don't have the resources allocated for the change. People are far more willing to engage when they feel supported, not when they feel like we've just added so much more weight to their shoulders. Homework number 4. So, for example, before implementing a new IT system, we make sure that we have the budget to buy the required licenses or applications. We make sure that we have training days available that are freed up and open for training. We might need to adjust performance targets temporarily, or we might need to have one or two persons that are available for on-demand support, etc., etc. So the more the change is significant, the more the resources are important. High expectations, high support. Homework number 5, choosing the right messengers. That's the ability to identify who is most credible to speak about the change. Because essentially, people listen to those they trust. And the right messenger can unite a team much more effectively than just a top-down written memo. Because it's not just what we say that matters, it's also who says it. So in times of change, the messenger's credibility can make or break the message. People listen and engage much more when the message comes from someone they trust. So before sending a polished all-staff email, let's ask ourselves, who would be the most reassuring or influential person to deliver this message? So for example, during a strategic shift or decision or project, a respected frontline manager delivers the message to its team explaining what will change, what won't, and why he or she actually believes in it. So choosing the right messenger. So we've just looked at 5 homeworks that we should do before actually seeking buy-in from our team. So thinking of a change, you will soon be leading. Which duties or homeworks do you think still need to be completed before asking for buy-in? So I'm going to ask you to take out your cell, capture the QR code on your screen, and check the duties or homeworks you think still need to be completed before talking about your change with your team. Do you have to document your change or decision? So not just keep it in your head. Explain the real why behind the what. Clean up inconsistencies. Ensure capacity to follow through. Choose the right messenger. All right, let's see what you so most of you is about documenting, and I'm not surprised because we often see this one. We think it takes time. We think we don't have time. It's so clear. We've spoken about it. We've talked about it so many times. It's so clear for you that there's almost no point to writing it. But for employees or team members, something written is much more serious than something that is just talked about. So that one is a biggie. And cleaning up inconsistencies is another good one. There are no bad ones here. It's just depending on your own reality. All right, good. Let's move along. The impact of emotional intelligence in change management. So basically, what should I do as a leader manager? How should I behave? How does it show when I apply emotional intelligence during change? So emotional intelligence doesn't just embellish a change process. It's not just for the fun of it. It's not to make it prettier. When we use emotional intelligence, when we apply it, it makes the change much more viable, engaging, and sustainable. So let's look at 8 strategies this afternoon. Strategy number 1 is read the emotional climate. I think you're familiar with the expression read the room. This is what this means, reading the room. So a leader with emotional intelligence is capable of picking up on subtle signals like resistance, eye rollings, arms crossed, anxiety, hope, fatigue, and so on before they actually become roadblocks. Is being able to pick up on those signals and knowing that there's a yellow flag or a red flag. When a leader is enabled to pick up on those subtle signals, it enables proactive communication and action before tensions take hold. I always say when you're able to read the room, you're more strategically prepared to handle what is to come. So a leader with being able to pick up on what's not yet being said is being, I'm going to repeat this. A leader with emotional intelligence picks up on what's not yet being said, but is already being felt. It's not because it's not said that it isn't felt. So like silent resistance, fatigue, anxiety, those kind of leaders, they sense it before it escalates. So for example, a team may be quiet during a meeting, avoiding questions or showing some subtle shifts in tone, but that's a signal. And it's enough to check in with something with your team, like saying, how are things going up for you right now? It opens the door before tension builds up. Reading the room and asking how things are going right now. Building trust is the second one. So a leader with emotional intelligence adopts a posture of listening, consistency, and transparency. That's the opposite of adopting a posture of a seller. I need to sell them my idea. I need to sell my project. I need to sell my decision. So when we're building trust, we're not trying to sell anything. So when I'm listening, when I'm transparent, it increases the likelihood that employees will give the initiative a second chance or a fair chance, even if it's not perfect. So a leader with EI doesn't try to control everything, or he or she doesn't pretend to have all the answers. They listen actively. They're consistent, they're transparent. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, you know what, guys? I don't have all the answers, but I know that us together, we can figure this out. And that kind of authenticity creates space for people to give the initiative a real chance, even if it's not perfect. So building trust is about listening and being transparent mostly. Strategy number 3, welcoming emotions without judgment or without being on the defensive. So a leader with EI acknowledges people's reactions instead of minimizing them or avoiding them. You actually acknowledge what people are feeling and the way they're reacting without just trying to pretend that it's not happening. The impact of doing so is that employees become more open to listening and less likely to reject or resist the change. So that means that a leader with EI doesn't try to shut down or doesn't even try to avoid emotional reactions. They actually validate them. For example, let's say an employee is angry. So instead of jumping in with explanations and trying to sell them something, that leader might just say something like, I can see that this is frustrating you or that you're frustrated. And I just want to understand more. Tell me about your frustration. Tell me what's making you angry. So wanting to understand emotions, that simple gesture reduces resistance and opens the door to dialogue. So that's strategy number 3. Not being afraid of emotions. They will come up for sure. Strategy number 4, making decisions with human impact in mind. So a leader with EI considers 2 things: the facts and how change will affect people. And when we consider both the facts and the impact, it helps avoid sudden shifts that are poorly received or decisions frozen by emotional overload. So EI doesn't mean that I'm ignoring facts. It only means that considering the facts and the people affected by them. So here's a simple example for this. If a team is already overwhelmed, it may not be the right moment to roll out something new. Even just delaying a non-urgent change can make a huge difference between buy-in and burnout. So keeping in mind how the change or the decision will impact the team. Let's move on with strategy number 5, inspire before imposing. So a leader with EI focuses first on inspiring rather than enforcing or imposing. Reasonable and yeah, I want to say that I'll say it like that. Reasonable people know that when the decision is made, they will probably have to implement it. But it's not, as we said earlier, it's not the change itself that creates resistance or buy-in, it's how it's done. So this is a good one. Inspire before imposing. So a leader with EI doesn't start with control. They start with suggesting. They start with inspiration. They invite people to contribute rather than demanding automatic agreement. That's a real difference between leadership and authority. So they try to inspire before enforcing. When we inspire before, people are more likely to engage by choice, which makes change more sustainable. It can be as simple as saying, here's what we're hoping to improve, and I'd love your input. How can we do this as a team? If we succeeded doing this or doing that, what do you think we would need to do? So your end in mind is still the same, but so the what is your decision, it's your imposing, but your inspire is really about the how are we going to do this. Strategy number 5, inspire before imposing. Number 6, model healthy emotional regulation. I'm reminded of something I heard about a leader that I admire so much. We used to say about this leader that he was cool as a cucumber. So model healthy emotional regulation. This is when a leader shows through their behavior how to navigate uncertainty calmly and effectively. A leader with emotional intelligence isn't immune to uncertainty. Even if they think that they made the best decision possible, they've decided that this is the direction that we're going to take, they will still ask themselves some questions and they will still feel at times to time uncertain about things. But when they show how to navigate this with calm and steadiness, it helps the team to navigate it as well with calm and steadiness as well. So that kind of presence stabilizes a team. So naming the tension, taking a breath, bringing the group back to what's within their control can reset the whole atmosphere. Strategy number 7, foster psychological safety. So a leader with emotional intelligence, they create a safe space where people feel safe to speak up without fear or judgment of repercussions. So the impact of creating that safe space, it encourages people to share ideas, ask questions, express doubts, suggest ideas for improvement. A leader with EI creates a climate where people really feel safe to speak up, even and mostly when it's uncomfortable. And that changes everything. When someone can say, Micheline, I'm worried about these new priorities without fear or without being judged or even punished, this is not a sign of resistance. This is a sign of trust. They trust you enough to share something that's uncomfortable. And that trust really fuels growth. So foster psychological safety. Make sure people are comfortable speaking up without that fear of judgment or repercussions. Lastly, but as important, strategy number 8 is to anticipate and prevent invisible tensions. So a leader with EI notices and addresses what isn't said. And these things could be like jealousy, a loss of status, a sense of unfairness. And I have an example in mind when a few members of your team applied for a promotion and only one got it. So a leader with EI will notice and address what might be going on inside. When a leader with EI does that, it allows them to adjust their message to different stakeholders and to offer support measures where needed. So, for instance, someone loses some responsibilities in a new structure, even if it's justified, it can feel personal. So, offering targeted support like a new mandate or direct acknowledgement, it can diffuse tensions that would otherwise stay unspoken or be talked behind everyone's back. To anticipate, prevent, and address invisible tensions. So those are strategies, those are behaviors that shows emotional intelligence when managing change. So let's go to a quiz right now. So you'll see in the quiz these same 8 strategies. Order these strategies starting with the one that comes most naturally to you, with and ending with the one that feels less natural. So when you're in Slido, you can actually use your finger to scroll through these strategies. And the top one is the one that you're most naturally comfortable doing. And the last one would be the one that feels least natural. I'm going to give you a minute to order these. I see that you guys are still ordering them, but I'm just going to open the Slido on the result page and see where you're at right now. All right. So building trust seems to be what's most natural to you guys. And if we go down, or now it's reading the emotional. So these two are really linked together. And when we did the French webinar this morning, these exact same two were on the top of the list. So I think we're more and more equipped to actually read the room and to build trust. We meet so many leaders in the work we do, and building trust is a quality that we're observing in leaders day after day. Being true, being authentic, being real, creating rapport with their team. That's a good way of building trust, and reading what's going on. And when not sure, asking how things are going on. And what came last? Inspire before imposing. Yeah, I think that's a natural tendency because most changes that we need to implement, sometimes they're not driven by us. They're driven by another department, from higher up, government, other stakeholders, and so on. So we tend to impose before inspiring them. We see that often. Anticipating and preventing invisible tensions. Yeah. It might come less natural because we tend to think that we are dealing with professionals, people that are mature, that are reasonable, that they understand, but just acknowledging that there could be some tensions, it's a show of empathy, and that really helps create buy-in. All right, thank you for your participation. Let's move along with the 5 strategies that we can use to better communicate, to engage. Strategy number 1, anchor communication in a concise and engaging vision. So here, see vision as synonym with decision, direction, and so on. So my vision in fewer than 20 words. If my vision is too long, I won't remember it. So how can my employees remember it? If it's more than 20 words, it's probably more sexy than clear, or it's probably more cute than clear. So let's keep it concise, 20 words max. Why is that so important? Because when it's clear, short, and ambitious, it gives everyone a common direction to rally around. We have a common understanding. We don't have to guess what it means. So using a brief phrase or sentence that people can easily remember and repeat. For example, this one is, we've had this one for a long time on the back burner, but this vision is coming alive lately. This is why we have new team members such as Hallie, but this is the one that is really true to us right now. It's to deliver a seamless white glove client experience, and we have to do this within 6 months. So white glove experience for all learners and clients. It's not sexy, it's not cute, but it's really clear. Strategy number 1, clear and short. Strategy number 2, when we talk about a decision or a change, we have to give it meaning. We know it means something. We for ourselves as leaders and managers, we already know what the meaning is behind the change, but we have to communicate it. So we have to be able to share with our team members, why are we adopting this new direction, or why is this new initiative important? When people understand the why, they're more likely to engage because they understand the deeper purpose behind the change. So here's a quick tip, and if you've done some training with us, this is the grunt test. Validate the change through 3 to 5 lenses. So guys, this is the new direction we're going, the white glove experience. This is why we're doing it. It aligns with our mission. We're there to help to build capacity, and to build capacity, it's got to be an A1 experience for all participants. It's true to our vision. We want to be the go-to training business. It reflects our values. We have 4 clear values, and being bienveillant, being attentionné, I only have the French words, is one of our values, and a white glove experience reflects that, and so on. No matter what your explanation is, make sure that it's aligned with mission, vision, values, satisfactions, needs, and trends. Strategy number 3, clarify what is changing and what is not. We often hear employees say, oh my gosh, everything is always changing all the time. Well, that's because we're always talking about what is changing, and we forget to say or to mention what is not. So clarify what is changing and what is not. Introduce change without creating confusion. When you do that, and it's important to do that because fear often stems from uncertainty. Clarifying what stays the same helps reduce anxiety. So always present a decision, a vision, or a change in pairs. What stays the same and what is going to be different. I often like to even add like a percentage with those. So I'd say something like 80% will be the same, 20% is changing, or sometimes it's the other way around. But when we're putting a number on it, it also helps being more clear about what is changing and what is not. Strategy number 4, it's the who, Name who is involved and who are the key players. So people need to identify with the phases of the change because they engage more easily when they know who is doing what and who's responsible of who or who they can turn to in case they have a challenge or a question. So name the sectors involved, identify visible champions or key points of contact. So let's say we'll have weekly forums, question and answers with the new technology we're using, or this is your go-to person in case you have questions or you're stuck with something. So name the who. Strategy number 5, prepare a clear sequence of milestones. So this is a timeline. So this is a way of saying this is what's coming and when. And why is this important to communicate? Because engagement increases when people can actually visualize the steps and situate themselves in the process. So for example, you might say, well, the final implementation date for the use of this new app is going to be, let's say, 3 months from now. The very next step, so starting next week, this is what's going to happen. And following that, these are the 2 or the next 3 key milestones that will follow. It's a way of preparing people what's coming and when, so it creates a sense of security and they can anticipate what's coming. So 5 strategies here. There are more, but those are 5 basic strategies to help communicate to engage more. So last quiz for today. Of the 5 strategies, which one or which ones would you like to practice more often? Is it to express your vision in fewer than 20 words, giving meaning, clarify what's changing, what's not, naming the people involved and key players, or maybe simply preparing a clear sequence of milestones? Let's take a look at your answers for now. All right. Yeah, so again, during the French webinar this morning, express my vision in fewer than 20 words was at the top of the list too. For some reason, we want to say so much in a vision or decision or new initiatives, but let's remember, the shorter, the clearer, the more engaging it is. All right, let's end with a trap and a risk, a tip and its impact. So here's a trap when we talk about change management and emotional intelligence. The trap is the following: thinking that communication is about delivering a message rather than building dialogue. There's a difference between communication and dialogue. So the risk of mistaking both is to have silence, is to interpret silence for agreement. So people that are silent are not necessarily without questions or doubts. They're not necessarily agreeing. They might be nodding, but they're not necessarily engaged or in agreement. So here's the tip. Treat each message as a hypothesis to validate and each reaction as useful feedback. So every time I deliver a message, I might be testing the waters with something to validate. And each reaction is not resistance. Each reaction is useful feedback because it's making me more strategically ready for what's next to come. And the impact of that tip, well, people will feel seen, heard, and involved. And change becomes shared, not imposed. All right, please stay with me for just a few more minutes. I'm excited to present you the next webinars. There's actually one tonight, and it's called, Is Your Organization Performing? Yes, no, maybe, whatever your answer is, how do you know? So that's tonight at 6:40 p.m. And there's another one in about 2 weeks from now, and it's called 3 Reflexes Towards a Coach Approach to Management. So we'll talk about a coach approach to management to actually so that you have less things on your plate and more time to do what you're actually intended to do as a manager leader in your organization. So if change management or emotional intelligence has you thinking and you'd like to have more trainings about it, there are many trainings on our website that could be useful, but I thought that these 5 would maybe be useful for you. So clarity above all, communicate to mobilize, cultivating accountability, one conversation at a time, emotional intelligence, how to have a positive impact in your environment, and change management, the work of leaders. So that's it for us today, guys. Thanks for being here. Hope to see you next time.